Howdy, y'all, and welcome to the Ears Podcast. I am Alligator Rob. I am joined by Bill Curtis, and we are minus Sydney today.
Yes, we are. I guess she's under the weather?
Yeah, said she'd been fighting something since last week, and it just isn't getting better.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, she's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, Cindy, you're sick. You're sick.
You can't help it, yeah.
There ain't nothing you can do about that.
No.
What are you going to do about that? Have you heard any reviews about my play calling so far?
No, nobody's. No,
Is that good that you haven't heard
That's good.
anything?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No.
Right.
If people were coming to me and saying, listen, we got to talk about this, that would be bad.
Okay.
So, no, none of that's happening.
You heard
So
it last week. Was it pretty decent?
One of the things I think we need to do is we need to jack up your volume a little bit. Because there were some times when, on the sidelines, I was having trouble hearing you.
My curiosity got the best of me. Is there only like one set of speakers out there on like the left side of the field and there's nothing on the right side?
Yeah, no, the speakers are all on top of the scoreboard.
Really? Okay,
yeah,
so they're
on top of the
way
scoreboard. There's two speakers. One points to the away stands, one points to the home stand, and they're on top of the scoreboard.
Oh yeah, we need to crank me way up then.
Yeah. So what you need to do,
because I was wondering if the crowd was even hearing me or not.
Oh no, I could hear you, but sometimes sometimes it depends on which way the wind's blowing.
Okay.
And but yeah, we need to look at it, and I'll go up with you, and we'll next game.
I guess I'm calling the JV game tomorrow.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sound like fun.
Well, what you do for the JV game is, for part of it, when you have the window open, you can hear yourself.
Oh yeah.
And then as long as you can stand the delay, there's a huge
it doesn't
delay.
bother me at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it bugged me. I would start listening to myself because it's literally like a 3-second delay.
Yeah, it's just perfect.
And all of a sudden I'm like, what am I saying? And I wait till I get to the end of the sentence before I go to the next one.
That was
it's not good.
A very emotional between first and second quarter there with the little girl.
Oh yeah, the little girl. Yeah.
That was there was a little girl there had been battling a rare type of brain tumor that they had out. That she got a little declaration or a presentation from the Titusville Police Department because that was been her goal forever, is to be a police officer. So that was pretty sweet.
So yeah, they made her a police officer.
Yep.
So she's the daughter of a Palm Bay teacher.
Yeah, that's what I was reading.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting stuff. All right, you ready to jump into this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So we are joined today on the podcast by a fella that I'm trying to think. Was it about a year ago we met? I can't exactly come up with a date.
Yeah, I think it was probably close to that, maybe even just a little bit less than a year, honestly.
Okay.
But I mean, it feels like it's been longer, doesn't it?
Yeah, indeed it does. So I hit it off with you and Keith Winston there at the Brevard Zoo pretty fast, and I consider you a good friend, and I'm super happy to have you. We're joined by the once education director from the Brevard Zoo, Zach Marchetti.
Marchetti.
Dag nabbit, I knew I was going to butcher it.
It's all right.
And what is your role there now?
So my current title is I am the community
engagement
and outreach officer. I had to look to double check it because it's still a brand new title and I'm still getting used to it being my title.
Okay, so tell us what that entails.
So what that entails is I am actually part of our philanthropy team now. So working to fundraise and make connections to support our mission at Brevard Zoo and with the East Coast Zoological Society. And a big part of that focus for me is working on the community engagement plan for the current capital campaign that we're undergoing. So the current capital campaign for Brevard Zoo is our legacy campaign. It's a $100 million campaign. It's the largest capital campaign we've ever attempted, and it's also the largest capital campaign anyone's ever attempted in Brevard County.
Awesome.
We launched it in December. We just hit $50 million last week.
Which is huge.
Which
that is a lot of money.
Amazing. I mean, I cannot tell you how thrilled we are. But what that means now is that up until now, we've been doing this campaign kind of quietly, small targeted events and things like that. But now that we have, 50%, we are on our way. We can get out there and we can get into the public, and we can really start the public phase of this campaign, which is really exciting because the project that we're working on is a really, really cool one. And so
it is.
The opportunity to get out and get people excited about it and get them as excited about it as I am is something that I am so passionate about, and the opportunity to do so is just so exciting. I can't even begin to describe.
You want to tell us a little bit about what some of that money is being raised for?
Yeah, absolutely. So the capital campaign is both to continue to support Brevard Zoo. We're a nonprofit organization. We do not receive any sort of reoccurring state or county or city funding. Out of the 220 some odd AZA accredited zoos in the country, only 20 something exist without reoccurring funding from a local government. So like if you work at Miami-Dade Zoo, many of those, or at Zoo Miami now, many of those employees are actually county employees or city employees. And that's true in many facilities across the country. So because we're not, we rely completely on ticket sales and concession sales and philanthropy, donors helping to support our mission work. So we are, through this campaign, still supporting Brevard Zoo so that we can grow everything that we do there and continue all the amazing conservation work and animal work that is done there by our staff. But kind of the big shiny object is a standalone aquarium at the port on a 14-acre site that we locked down the lease for last September with the port. It's right on the Banana River, basically where A1A bends right at the port there. It's that little corner of land. You've never noticed it because you've driven by it and it's just like Brazilian pepper and concrete rubble.
Yep.
But it is the absolutely best site that you could imagine for this kind of a project, because this is not just an aquarium, but it's a conservation hub and a conservation center specifically focused on the Indian River Lagoon. So you're not going to come to this aquarium and see clownfish and sea otters. You're going to come and you're going to see snook and bull sharks and all of those animals that call this amazing estuary home. And it's really going to focus not only on education, the same way Brevard Zoo does, but also on that conservation aspect. We have a 3-story conservation and education building in the plans for this, which will provide classroom space so we can continue the education work that we do, but then also provide wet labs and conference halls and things to bring all these little siloed organizations that are all out there doing amazing work for the Indian River Lagoon and try and actually bring them together. And so our hope is that, being non-governmental, we're not affiliated with any particular university or anything like that, we can sort of be that glue that brings everybody together.
Yeah, I have zero doubt. That's what drew me to you guys. As soon as I met you guys and we started talking research and education, I was like, oh man, I love these guys. This is perfect. This is a collaboration. What in the world just happened to those words?
It's a great word.
This is something I've been working toward for a long time. And as soon as I met you guys, I'm like, they're looking to do the same thing. It's great. Collaboration. Oh my garage.
Collaboration. Yeah.
Dear goodness gracious, what is going on with my brain? So yeah, it's super, super exciting stuff. I know right now, the Brevard Zoo, you guys have your own different ecological studies and projects going on in the Indian River Lagoon yourselves, do you not?
Absolutely. So Brevard Zoo has been a local conservation kind of entity for a long time. So many zoos send a huge amount of their money overseas, because, and for very good reasons, there are a lot of animals in trouble all over the world, right? So it does make sense to send money and support organizations in Africa and South America and Southeast Asia, where you have these amazingly diverse areas. But we also have an amazingly diverse area in our own backyard. And so the focus locally is, one, because it's hard to go across the world and say, hey, y'all need to take care of your environment when we're not doing the same in our own backyards. But then also because
it's funny you say that, because it's always been something we've always joked about with the trips to Mars and the moon and stuff. Like, can we clean up our own backyard first before we go mess up somebody else's? I mean, nothing against it, super excited about it, but at the same time, it's a real thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, the other focus is that Brevard Zoo and the East Coast Zoological Society, which is sort of the umbrella nonprofit organization that sits over Brevard Zoo, was a community-created entity. It was brought to life because there was a group of people in Brevard County that wanted some sort of conservation and nature-focused entity where you could escape the growing urban sprawl and all the things that were going on in the late 80s and early 90s. And so in 94, when we opened the doors, it was very much a project by and for the community. And so maintaining a local focus on our conservation has always been really important to us. So we have an amazing conservation department. They have all sorts of different projects. I don't think I could list them all if you gave me a half an hour. But the highest profile one is the Restore Our Shores project. And the Restore Our Shores is all focused on recreating native habitat within the Indian River Lagoon. So this means oyster reefs, it's clam beds, it's seagrass, it's mangroves, living shorelines, and creating those things that are such important parts of the biodiversity with that the Indian River Lagoon has and should have even more of, right?
No doubt.
So I've been able to get out with that team a few times. I got to go out with them and do a clam bed planting project, which was pretty neat. We're doing that with UF, with Whitney Labs, and this super clam project, right? So for those who aren't familiar, there was a population of clams found in the Mosquito Lagoon, or the Northern Indian River Lagoon, after the major die-offs back 10 years ago. And they were brought into the lab, and they said, okay, these clams survived what none other can. They must have some really awesome genetics, so let's get them breeding. And they have been doing that to an amazing ability. And now we're at the point where we're actually planting those clams out. And we're not the only organization doing it. UF and Whitney Labs are doing it with other crews too. But we're going out and we're planting clams in these sites. So we recruit homeowners that have property on the lagoon, and we survey. And when I say we, I don't mean I have nothing to do with this. It's all our teams that are doing all this work. They survey the property, decide whether or not it's an acceptable site for clams, and lay out these clam beds. And so I got to go out with them when we were checking up on some old clam beds and then also planting some new ones. And the first thing that blew me away was how small a bag 25,000 clams can fit into when they're only the size of a dime.
Yeah.
But even more impressively was to see the beds that had been planted 6 months ago with those same dime-sized clams, and the fact that those clams were now an inch and a half,
They're
2
bulking.
inches
Okay.
across at the hinge. I mean, and they are growing, they are thriving out there.
Wow.
And so that's a really exciting thing to see. So they have other projects too. We have some breeding projects for indigenous species from here in Florida, endemic species like Florida grasshopper sparrows, which is one of the most endangered birds in North America. They have one tiny little section of habitat basically that's left in Central Florida. Tiny little brown bird, they're about this big. Nobody at the zoo ever gets to see them because they're kept behind the scenes in a quiet area where they can just breed and do their thing. But this year, our first real breeding year ever, we have released well over 30, and I think possibly even over 40 now, fledglings back out into that critical habitat in conjunction with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, FWC,
How cool is that?
and the partner organizations. I mean, so I can tell you that team has just been very busy, but also so excited with the success of that project because we had no idea that it would be so successful in our first true breeding year. We work with the Perdido Key beach mice from Perdido Key, which are just like the beach mice anywhere else in areas with dunes. They are dune engineers. They plant the seeds that hold the dunes together. Without those mice, you don't have dunes, you don't have hurricane protection.
It's a big thing out there on the Space Center. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we have breeding projects. We have the restoration projects for different areas. There's a lot of really neat things going on there.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Got your fingers and hands in all kinds of cool stuff.
Absolutely. And I mean, and so creating the second campus for us and having this standalone aquarium not only provides additional focus in the conservation space, but it provides a direct access for this team to the Banana River, to the Indian River, because it puts them right there. Now, we're not far right now. We're about 3 miles from Brevard Zoo to the Indian River as the crow flies. But being right there and being able to show that conservation work in action, you walk out to the end of a boardwalk at the aquarium, hang out over the water, and see oyster reefs and clam beds, and really be able to actually visualize and experience that conservation work that is otherwise just a talking head or a picture
huge.
Or something like that.
Yeah, it's huge to be able to not only to tell people about what's going on, but be able to walk out there and show it to them. They're going to totally understand what's going on and be more behind it because they're going to feel more involved.
Absolutely. I mean, when you show them, a barren sand flat and then show an oyster reef and look for all the tiny little animals that are living in both, and just people's eyes light up and they go, wow, oh yeah, okay, I understand this now. Like, that's why these oyster reefs or all these other micro environments are so important, because until people can really see it and experience it, it can be hard to get that message across sometimes.
It's very neat. So when you and I first met, you were telling me a little bit about your journey to where you're at now. Tell everybody about that, what you did, kind of working your way this direction.
So my journey has been an interesting one. It's taken me in places I didn't expect to. I grew up on the coast of Maine, tiny little postcard town, beautiful place to grow up, beautiful place to visit in the summer, long, dark, cold winters. and not a lot going on. So it's a great place to leave once you hit 18 and want to go find somewhere else. So all through high school, I had a great high school, really good at high school education, and I was so focused on going to college and being a biologist. That's what I was going to do. I was going to do research biology. I knew that from probably 4th grade on.
That's
I knew
epic.
that. My parents knew that. My teachers knew that. My guidance counselor knew that. And so that was the track I was on. Graduated high school, got into a really, really good small liberal arts school out in Minnesota, McAllister College, tiny little college in St. Paul, and went there to study biology, become a research biologist. And after 2 years, I crashed because I was losing my passion for biology. I was going through other things personally, and I needed a break. So middle of my the second semester of my sophomore year, I called my parents and I said, I'm done. They were shocked because, I mean, they had no idea any of this was coming. I said, I need to come home. I need a break. So I left. The idea was just take a semester off, kind of regather and come back. And so while I was home, I started looking at some options. I said, I need to do something to re-spark my enthusiasm, get back that excitement and that passion so that I can really go back to school and finish this off. So I applied for a volunteer spot on a research project in Ecuador with a British company that did, sort of adventure tourism, science type stuff. So you'd go out and you'd get some basic training and you'd do mammal spotting and bird identification and help with some of the project. And so I applied for that. I got accepted. I went. I spent 3 months living in the middle of the rainforest, right on the Peruvian border in Ecuador, on the Rio Curaray, and had the most mind-blowingly amazing experience of my entire life. I saw things I never thought I would see, got to experience things I never thought I would experience. And at the end of that first 3 months, they offered me a job. They said, we're starting a new project and we'd like you to help us start it. We're working with a new community in a new area. It's a different Ecuadorian nonprofit. We'd love to have you come and start it. So I was faced with either going back to school in Minnesota, and at this point it was probably November. So going back to Minnesota for a spring semester, starting in the winter.
Yeah.
Yep. And paying $40,000 a year for school, or getting paid to stay in the rainforest and do more research and find cool stuff. So not a difficult decision for me. I stayed in the rainforest, and I ended up staying there for about 2 years overall and starting this other project with this really, really neat Ecuadorian non-governmental organization that ran a ecotourism lodge. They had a fair trade chocolate farm. They had an alternative education high school for indigenous students that brought students in from just the surrounding bits of the rainforest, and they would live there for months at a time and then go back to their family. While they were there, they were learning permaculture. They were learning skills so that they could get jobs as guides at ecotourism lodges, because that's one of the best paying jobs that you can get in areas like that. They were sending kids to Quito, to the capital, to go to culinary school and learn how to be chefs for ecotourism lodge. Just a really, really neat organization. But what I learned over those 2 years is I hate research biology.
It's the way to learn it.
I do not have that level of meticulous detail to pursue a career in research biology. And I realized over the course of that time, more and more, because every 3 months we'd get a new batch of volunteers. We'd say goodbye to one group, take them to the airport, they'd all fly out, we'd get our next group, and go back out. And what I realized more and more is that I enjoyed actually teaching everybody and talking to everybody about the science that they were going to do than actually doing that science with them. And so that was a really important realization for me, because I realized I liked talking about science more than doing science. And that then led me to trying to figure out, okay, so now what am I going to do with my life? My entire career plan and life plan has been blown to smithereens with this realization. What am I going to do? And I looked at a lot of different things and eventually sent in an application to this small reptile zoo that I had visited once in Pennsylvania when I was there for a family reunion at my aunt's house. It's called Clyde Peeling's Reptiland. Looks and sounds like some sort of little roadside attraction, but is actually a AZA accredited, so Association of Zoos and Aquariums accredited reptile specialty zoo, and has an amazing assortment of animals and does really, really, really awesome work. And I did a phone interview from Ecuador with about a 5-second delay. And so we were talking about delays earlier with our, with recording equipment and with the game. I mean, I know what that's like. Yeah, that can throw you off a little bit, especially in a job interview.
Oh yeah.
And I remember just sitting in this tiny, tiny little phone booth in Ecuador and talking to Jeff, my soon-to-be boss, and doing this phone interview. And he ended up offering me the job on the phone. And so I finished up my time there in Ecuador, let them kind of transition in some new staff, and flew back to Maine, saw my parents for a few days, packed everything in a station wagon, and moved myself to Pennsylvania and started my first job as a keeper/educator, working with primarily reptiles, and primarily venomous snakes. And I worked there for 3 years and just absolutely fell in love with teaching people about wildlife and about conservation and about ecology, and especially about teaching people about misunderstood and dangerous animals. Venomous snakes was a huge focus for me. So from there, I moved to the Naples Zoo because I was, again, Pennsylvania, not quite as long of a winter as Maine, but still a little too long for my taste. So we kept trucking south, moved to the Naples Zoo. I was there for 7 years. When I started, I was in the show department, and so did stage shows with sloths and hawks and owls and ocelots and kind of random small mammals and things, but then also got to do a venomous snake presentation outside with live venomous snakes every single day unless it was thunder and lightning. And that was such an extraordinary experience, because to just have people around you and just give them the ability to ask whatever question is on their mind about venomous snakes was such a neat way for that kind of program to go. Because for a long time I had done kind of more strict education programs. When I was at Reptiland, you would have a group of people sitting in front of you. You were on stage, the lights were on you, everything else was dark, and you would talk to them. When we did this show, we had basically, almost like an old school snake pit, except we weren't down below the ground. We were at ground level, about a 4-foot barrier, but it was 30 foot in diameter. It looked like a big above ground pool. And we'd have 2 of us go out there, and we would bring 2 or 3 snakes out with us. We'd bring one of them out at a time. One person would kind of pull it out of the box, walk it just a little bit so everybody could get a glimpse at it, while the other person started talking, and we put them on the ground and just let them do whatever they want. And just let them crawl. So we bring out rattlesnakes and cottonmouths, a lot of native snakes, but we'd bring out exotic stuff too, cobras and fertilances and some neat stuff that people hadn't seen before. And really we'd do, like a 3 or 4 sentence introduction to a species, and then just turn it over to the audience. And sometimes you'd get 5 minutes of dead silence or 2 minutes of dead time, but then somebody's going to ask a question. And then once one person does, somebody else is brave enough too.
Oh yeah.
And by the end of it, you have people just so enthusiastically involved and authentically involved, because they're learning the things that they want to learn, not what you think they wanted to learn. And with something as misunderstood about venomous snakes, I cannot tell you how powerful of a realization that was for us, because we realized how much more effective that presentation style was. And even on the days where it was August in South Florida and we're sweating before we even get out of the reptile room to load the cart up with snakes to go out to the show area, we would wrap that show with huge smiles on our faces every single day, because of just how genuinely excited and enthusiastic and involved the audiences were. And so that is where I really, really continued to fall in love with that sort of, real, rather than just education, that engagement side of it. So I did that. I was there for about 7 years, and then had some family issues and had to move back to help my wife's family. We moved back to Pennsylvania for a couple of years. I worked corporate retail for 2 years. Not something I plan on repeating. Corporate retail, not my thing, but it paid the bills for a little while. And then when I was looking to get back into the field, we were ready to move back down. I reached out to my old zoo director at Naples and said, hey, looking to get back in the field. And he pointed me towards Brevard. The director, Keith, who was really good friends with him. And
excellent human being.
He is, absolutely. Yeah. And very, very passionate about venomous snakes. And so the timing was perfect, because at the time, Brevard Zoo was renovating the Rainforest Revealed Loop, and Keith really wanted to add venomous snakes for the first time in Brevard Zoo's history. And as you know, in the state of Florida, you need a lot of specialized permitting and things to have venomous snakes at all, even for an AZA accredited zoo. We don't there are no loopholes for us within FWC laws. We have to follow everything just like everybody else does. And so I had done all of that permitting. I've done anti-venom importation and all that stuff. And so I came in to start and build that program, bring the snakes in and help them build that. But what I told Keith at the beginning was, I'll come in, I'll build this program. I'm really excited to help you do it. But after like 2 years, I need to do something else, because I've realized, as much as I love venomous snakes, that there's more out there for me. I am not as so many people that love venomous snakes. That's the only thing
that's
they
their
love.
jam, and that's it. Yeah,
and that's fantastic because those people should have that opportunity. They are the ones that should be in those roles. For me, I am so much more excited about just engaging with people and getting them excited about conservation and science and all the same things that you like to get people excited about, that I wanted to move on to new roles. And so I worked my way through a couple of different positions over the last couple of years and have now landed myself in my current role, where I'm wearing dress shoes instead of work boots and dress and slacks instead of cargo shorts, which feels really, really weird.
They are some fancy shoes too.
I just bought them.
Yeah, they're fancy.
Yeah, they're comfortable too.
Yeah.
But it's been such a strange transition. But as I've been doing it, I've realized like, this is where I want to go. This is the direction I want to go. Not necessarily the shoes, but the engaging people at a different level and trying to have as much positive impact as I can.
So I've mentored some students, and I find, if we're backtracking for a second, the parts that you were saying there in the beginning, how you thought you wanted to do research biology, you weren't sure, you went out in the field, you did some intern work, and you kind of figured it out. I'm always telling students that, like, if you want to, you want to go into the biology world, okay, what do you want to do in biology? And before you've decided to, if you can get there between high school and college and go intern somewhere and see that's really what your passion is, there's so many cool internship opportunities around the world. If you want to go work with primates or whatever it might be, go there and try it for a few months and see what you think, because you might double down and go, this is 100% what I want to spend the rest of my life doing, or you might go, man, I really don't like monkeys. Yeah, I really don't want anything to do with monkeys. They're kind of mean. A monkey bit my finger. I don't know what I'm not. This is not my jam.
Not going to be with monkeys.
So yeah, it's that just rings true over and over again. That, man, spend some time, go do an internship and see what it's actually like. But anyhow, yeah, I'm glad that's a heck of a journey. I'm glad it's going so good for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, people talk about luck, and I've definitely had a lot of luck because the right opportunities have been available at the right times, and I feel really fortunate to have gotten where I've gotten.
That's very awesome. So I gave you a little bit of homework.
Yes.
On your way here.
Yes, you did.
You want to hit some trivia?
Sure. Before you showed up, he gave me all the answers. So
did he? Okay, fair enough. Well, at least somebody knows something, because I can't even come up with the word collaborate.
No, I tried to get him. I tried to get him to give me the answers, but he wouldn't.
That's hilarious.
All right. So, I mean, I figured
I'm a little bit afraid.
When you asked me and said, put together some trivia questions, and said, any particular topic, and just dealer's choice. So I figured, I'm working for Brevard Zoo. It's got to be some animal questions.
I love it.
I tried to think of some animal questions that might stump Alligator Rob. The problem is that all of my good animal trivia is reptile trivia. So I tried to stay away from that category because I didn't think I was going to get where I needed to go. So,
you
came into this with the idea you're going to stump us.
Oh yeah, no, it's stump you. Well, it's not. He knows he can stump me. It's you. He's going for.
All right.
Okay. I'm feeling the pressure.
Okay. So let's see. What is the highest jumping species of hoofstock? Not for their body size, just vertical leap. I'll give you a hint. It's an antelope, not a deer or a boar.
Yeah, I was going to say it's something African, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's some sort of impala, probably.
You're absolutely right. It's impala, yeah. Most people don't know, but an impala can actually jump higher than the average house. Now, that's because the average house can't jump. And
there's so many different species of them that there's little ones and big ones and medium-sized ones. And
I think I was in high school. I had an impala. Yeah. Might have been a whole different thing.
No, an impala can jump a standing jump, vertical jump of about 10 feet, a distance jump of almost 30 feet. So that is an impressive
Sucker's got some spring.
Jump. And I've seen that in person. There are times where throughout my career we've had to go and we've had to herd a herd of impala into one area or another, and you go out there with 15 people and these 100-foot stretches of shade cloth to try and create a visual barrier, and they just look at you and they laugh, because if they want to go over you, they're going over you, and all you can do is just stand there and watch them fly. So
I've always just enjoyed watching just our normal white-tailed deer down here jump a 6-foot fence like it's just a walk in the park. Like it's not even trying. Just pop over it and go, All right, give me a real challenge because that was a joke.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, their animals are amazing in what they're capable of.
Truly are.
All right. Next one. What is the only species of carnivore that makes up more than half of its diet with primates?
Ooh.
Now, humans are not on the menu for this animal. If that makes it
Species of
easier.
carnivore.
Yep.
So this is not a reptile because you said you didn't go
Oh,
reptiles.
Right. This is a mammal. This is another mammal question.
It'd probably be a big cat of some sort, if I had to make a guess. And we're probably talking African again.
Really? Or
Maybe
what
not.
about-
Maybe
what
not
about
African.
An Indian tiger.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's a cat of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would agree.
It wouldn't be a jaguar, although jaguars are flipping awesome.
Mhm.
It could be a jaguar, actually.
But I mean, think about jags for a second. What do you see them? Anytime you see pictures of jags, they've got what? They've got deer and stuff like that, right? How
True.
often do you see? I'm sure jags grab baboons and stuff from time to time.
That's true.
But it's not
normally the
actually a
thing
big
you see.
cat. It's actually it's a smaller animal.
Ooh, okay.
But
Really?
more than 50% of their diet is made up with primates. Now, primates are a large group, so you got to kind of
Okay.
expand what you're thinking with primates here.
Is this something Asian?
It's not. It is African.
African. Okay, it's African.
But
it
not
feeds
necessarily-
normally on primates.
Not necessarily
It's not
the
a
parts
cat.
of Africa that you're going to jump to immediately.
So it's probably North Africa then.
Well, no. So Madagascar.
Madagascar.
Let's
okay.
narrow it down quick.
Frank's going to just
Yeah.
keep saying, well, then it has to be this.
I
It's
see
like-
where his logic's
it's like
going
one of
because
those- it's one of those 10 question
But
things.
then
where
if
you
he
can finally narrow it
actually gets it right, he's going to go, see, I knew it all the time.
down. I am not going to say that at all. Madagascaran.
it's a species that not a lot of people have heard of. I think more kids know it than more adults because it
Oh,
played
maybe
a
it's from the
role-
movie Madagascar.
It played a role in the movie.
Oh, what
and they
were
got
those little-
one part of that very correct. There was one part of the biology of that species that they got very incorrect in that movie.
What was that little stripy animal?
Little
Probably.
stripey. You mean the ones that were all dancing?
Yeah, yeah.
So those were lemurs.
Those were lemurs.
Oh,
yeah.
lemurs.
and
okay.
that is the primary food source for this predator.
Oh, eating the lemurs. Okay.
Primary food source of lemurs. Oh, I remember hearing this before at the Brevard Zoo when I went on the paddle with had all the lemurs in the middle of it. Oh my garage! I cannot remember. I know I specifically remember reading it and being told it down there at the zoo on many times walking through there and paddling through there, paddling by them. But I don't remember. Do you know?
No,
No?
I don't.
All right. So
Could
the
Hold on. What
Could
do
it
you
be
get?
a hippo?
No.
not a hippo. Hippos are super dangerous and kill lots of people. That's true,
Probably
but
most
they're not
dangerous animal in the world.
carnivores.
Right.
So their attacks on people are not diet related; they're territory related. But that is a good guess if you're thinking things that are dangerous to primates. But the answer is an animal called a fossa or a fossa. It's pronounced both ways: Fosa, Fossa.
Oh, there you go.
Native only to Madagascar. This is one of the coolest predators on planet Earth. Okay, so they look like a combination between a cat and a weasel, but they are actually most closely related. For a long time, they were grouped with civets, but their closest living relative is actually the dwarf mongoose from Africa.
Interesting.
But they are about 5 feet long, and about 60% of that is tail. It's a non-prehensile tail, but it gives them balance when they're jumping through the air. And not only does it give them balance, but it's so big that if they really whip it from side to side, it can turn their entire body in midair. In addition to that, like squirrels, they have rotating back ankles. So
Okay.
their back feet can flip around 180 degrees so they can run headfirst down a tree.
So this is a serious critter.
This is a serious critter, no joke. They're such a serious critter that their scientific name. I love weird scientific names for animals. The ones that are there's a type of biting fly that's named after Gary Larson, the creator of The Far Side, because he used to poke fun at entomologists so often. So an entomologist named a really annoying type of biting fly after him, like stuff like that. I absolutely adore. But the fussa's scientific name is Cryptoproctera ferox. So cryptology, hidden.
Right.
Procta, anybody who's ever been to a proctologist knows where that link is coming from, right? And then ferox means fierce. So if you translate their scientific name, it is fierce, hidden, blank hole. That is the scientific name for that
Okay.
species.
Well, there we go.
Fossa. Okay,
And-
interesting.
Yeah, absolutely one of the most impressive predators, non-reptilian predators on planet Earth. Hands
Very
down.
neat.
Very cool species.
Yep. I if I've heard of it, I don't remember hearing of it.
No,
Yeah,
no, I haven't.
that's one I need to look up and read about.
All right. Cool. All right. Next one.
Well
Ready?
done. Yep.
This one might be easier. I think it might be. How long does a male lion sleep per day on average?
20 hours.
I would have said 18, but somewhere around there I would guess.
The answer is 18 to 20 hours.
Yeah.
Well, there we go, right there.
There we go.
Depending on whose book you read,
Yeah.
it might be as little as 16, it might be as much as 22, but the range is always right in that 18 to 20 hours. And that blows people away.
God,
So,
how do you get
could they
that gig?
sleep that well?
How do you get
Well,
that?
think
gig?
about your household dog for the
oh
most
yeah,
part. You know
or
what I
your
mean?
household
Well,
cat.
Yeah, it's the same difference. Pretty much.
There's a caveat to that fact. That fact is only true if the male lion in question, has a pride.
Okay.
Because if it is a
Right.
bachelor lion,
He's working
he
for a
has to
living.
hunt for
Yeah.
himself.
Right. Oh yeah.
He's
Male
working
lions
for
with a
living.
pride, the females do all of the hunting. They even do a lot of the smaller disputes with hyenas and other species. The male really only steps up when he has to. A male lion's life is basically sleep, wake up, see if anybody's brought any food. If they have, go eat it. If they haven't, roar a couple times and hope nobody answers. Because if nobody answers, you can go back to sleep. If somebody answers, then now you've got work to do. You got to go and defend the pride and do all of that. But I mean, that's their life. And so when people come to the zoo and they see the lions, they're like, oh, they look really bored. It's like, no, that's what they do. Yeah, they
That's
don't have a
just
pride
them.
in the zoo, but our zookeepers are their pride, right? They bring them their food. They make sure that everything is safe. They don't have to battle for territory. And so being a male lion, although can very dangerous, in the off season can be a pretty cushy gig.
All right.
There you go.
Jam up.
All right. This is a weird one. Like I said,
Yeah,
I had
the
to get,
other
I
ones
had to
were
get
so
weird on some of
normal.
this. Yeah.
So now he's getting weird.
Well, the Fusa one was a little out there. But.
The first one was pretty awesome. Yeah.
All right. For a long time, for decades and decades.
Okay.
Well, actually, let me backtrack for a second again. Do we all know what a coatimundi is? Coati.
Yes.
Okay. So it's
no.
basically it's a stretched out South American raccoon. They actually extend all the way up into Texas and New Mexico, but primarily Mexico, Central and South America.
They're very lemurish.
Yeah, yeah, they do. I mean,
Yeah.
they've got their ringtail, like ringtail lemurs, but they've got they're raccoon relatives. They're in the raccoon kinkajou family. They have a really, really long, pointy nose. They've got these big, long, ringed tails. They're omnivores, just like raccoons here in North America, and can be found throughout a lot of Central and South America. Now, the most common species in South America is Nassau nassau. Again, weird scientific names, translates to nose. Nassau, nose, it's just because they have this huge long nose that they use for finding their food and rooting around. But anyway, so this species has a pretty large range throughout South America, and including a lot of the really, really popular, like first heavily studied areas by biologists in South America. And for a long time during those early phases, they thought that within the range of Nassau nassau, this one coatimundi species, that there were two distinct species, and they were very confident about that. The trivia question is why? I'll give you a hint.
There must
It
have been
wasn't
some,
two species.
There must have been some morphological differences between male and female.
Physically,
maybe,
almost identical. Virtually identical physically.
with different
Slight
colors.
size
then?
difference. Nope.
Coloration?
Nope.
No?
That's
Could
what
it be
I was-
color-
behavioral patterns?
Behavioral patterns is part of it.
Okay.
the food they ate.
Food they ate is also part of it as a result of part of the behavioral patterns.
Interesting. So what was different between one and the other?
So what's different is the way they live for the entire year outside of the tiny, tiny window that is breeding season, because they live completely separately. Female coatis live in these huge bands, 30, 40, 50, sometimes even more individuals. And it's all females and then youngsters, babies. And they travel around in these huge groups, and they find fruiting trees primarily. That's a big part of their food is fallen fruit, but then also roots and tubers and bugs and stuff like that too. They're omnivores, like I said. But fruiting trees are a big, really important part of their diet. So they find a fig tree or a palm that's fruiting, all the food's fallen to the ground, and they take it over. And they swarm that area, and they hang on to that for as long as fruit is falling. At the same time, you have males that are solitary, and the males can't access the fruiting trees because the females will literally just chase them off. And so that forces them to find different food sources. So you had one species of coati that was primarily frugivorous, primarily fruit eating, and very, very social, lived in these really large groups. And then at the same time, according to biologists at the time, you had a separate species of coati that lived by itself and primarily ate bugs and little lizards and carrion with little bits of fruit in here and there. And it was such a distinct lifestyle that they labeled them as distinct separate species for a really, really long time. But really all that it is that the females travel in these big groups, they control the best fruiting grounds for their offspring, and the males aren't allowed to get any, and they're forced to actually hunt for themselves and do a lot more work to find their food. And it isn't until breeding season, because the males will sort of very, very surreptitiously track these bands of females through the rainforest, staying well enough away that they don't get torn up by all the females, until they sense a change of smell of the pheromones that indicates that the female is ready to breed. And at that time, they are able to slip into that big mob, into that big pack, for just a very, very brief amount of time, breed, and then they get chased right back out again.
The female gang.
Exactly.
There you go, yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Talk about, all right. So the sign that we have for them says, talk about girl power, because I mean, they control it all. It's really, really cool. So, but what's really neat about that is that we take lessons from that. We can take lessons from that for how we care for those animals in zoos and things like that. Coatis are one that have proven difficult for a lot of zoos to breed. And part of it is because often they get a male, they get a female, they put them together in the same habitat, they raise them up together. That's not necessarily how they live. So they end up looking at each other as siblings, or they don't really know what to do with each other and never have successful breeding. But when you really start to pay attention to their natural history and you look at how they live separately with these different diets and things, you can start to see how those things might impact their social behavior as we care for them. So we added a second coati habitat, put a tunnel in it so that we can actually, outside of breeding season, be able to separate our male, bring him back in, bring him back out, and try and recreate some of that based on our current understanding of how coatis live, which is pretty cool.
That is pretty neat.
Yeah.
That is pretty neat.
Wow. Yeah.
Learn some every day.
Yep. Learned a lot.
All right.
Oh, you got one more?
That was 4. You said 5. You
all
want
right.
me to do the 5th one? I don't have to.
Hit us with one more.
Okay. Last one. I'm going back to reptiles, just
Okay.
because this is one of my
Maybe I have a chance.
favorite.
Maybe I have a chance.
I think you might. I hope if you don't, I'm going to be really excited. All right. So, what is it about gaboon vipers that make the black spots on their body so black? Now, gaboon vipers, as well, Frank's thinking, one of the heaviest bodied venomous snakes on planet Earth, found in Central Africa. These are rainforest dwelling snakes, big, heavy bodied snakes, huge heads, longest fangs of any venomous snake on planet Earth. Their fangs can be close to 2 inches long. These are big, heavy bodied snakes. Compared to a lot of other species like eastern diamondbacks and things, they have a very short strike range. So they really rely on their camouflage because their prey has to get right up to them before they can catch it. And fairly recently, researchers discovered something really, really cool about their camouflage and what makes it so special within the reptile world. I'll give you a hint. There are some species of butterflies where we've seen the same thing. And there are products at Home Depot and Lowe's right now based on these findings and these discoveries in nature.
So it's not just a simple adaptation.
Well, so it is an adaptation, but I'll rephrase it a little bit. So their camouflage extends to the little bits coming up on their nose, the upturned rostral scales, and that
It's
break up
almost
the
like
outline
they have
of their
little,
head.
little horns almost,
Yep.
kind of, sort of.
And in a pile of dead leaves, they look like just like the curling tip of a dead leaf. But within their body are these randomly variable patterns. They can be pinks and purples and golds. They can be browns. They can be grays. But on virtually every gaboon viper I've ever seen pictures of or in person, there are spots, patches, lines that look like you are looking through the animal. It looks like there is a hole in that animal.
So is that a biological property of their skin?
It's a physical property of their skin.
Okay.
So, do you want me to
Sure.
go for it? All right.
Tell me, yeah.
So, researchers, I think it was in Germany, started looking at these guys really closely to figure out why these black scales are so black. And they ended up actually running the scales under a scanning electron microscope to see the level of detail that they needed. And what they found was that on the other scales of the gaboon viper, there are lots of very, very small ridges. And that's true of a lot of species of snakes. A lot of ambush predator snakes have somewhat rough scales because it makes them not as shiny and breaks up their outline and stuff like that. But
very feathered, yes.
Yep. But on the black portions of the scales, what they found were these nano ridges. So these microscopic ridges that run in all sorts of directions on these scales. When they zoomed in further, those ridges have ridges. Then those ridges have ridges, and those ridges have ridges. I mean, we're talking electron microscope level detail here. So they said, I wonder if that structure is what is trapping the light and making it look so dark. So they took a gold palladium and painted these ridges with a single layer over the scale, and they painted the other scales on the snake's bodies as well and compared them. The ones from the lighter portions of the snake were gold, as they should be. You just put gold on the snake, right? You painted it. The black spots were still black because the nanostructure within those scales traps so much light that even if you cover it in as long as it's a thin enough layer of reflective gold material that it doesn't interrupt those nanostructures, it still absorbs so much light because the light photons just get trapped, bouncing around back and forth between these little ridges, and over time more and more and more of them are absorbed until very, very little to virtually no visible light escapes the human eye.
Snake is covered with black holes.
That'd be like the ultimate.
Basically,
that'd be like the ultimate thing to put on your solar panels.
Yeah. So
see, this is what
I'm
I was talking about.
so glad that you just said that, because that's the type of research that's going on now. We're seeing all these ultra flat black paints and things that are going on. Those are all done with microstructures. And gaboon vipers and butterflies, there's some species of butterflies that have the same thing, where if you look at them, it just looks like a black hole straight through their body. And it's because of a very similar type of adaptation. It's not the same type of nanostructure, but it's still that level of nanostructure that just traps little light photons, keeps them bouncing around until over time so many of them are absorbed that they don't come back to your eye. And so solar panels, radar detection, all of that kind of stuff.
There's tons of
there's so many possibilities for it. So yeah, that's probably hands down one of my favorite reptile facts of all time. And just the gaboon vipers in general are one of my favorite snakes, but that's I think the coolest thing about them.
That's pretty neat.
Wow.
Yeah. Remember, we were talking about George Van Horn this morning, who we had on here once before. I remember going over there to his place one time, and somebody had given him a bunch of them that were born without eyes. They were eyeless gaboon vipers. It was the weirdest thing I ever seen in my life. But yeah, that's a very cool snake. Yeah. And yeah, I had no idea. That's some pretty neat stuff.
You look up gaboon vipers ultra black, and you'll find articles on it. It's really cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to him about that now and get George's input on that one, because he'll have some cool stuff to say about that, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you need to go over there and meet him too, by the way. Yeah, he's a great guy.
Make it happen.
So, you have anything interesting going on the rest of the week?
No, not really. I mean, the team's away this week, and so I don't think I'm going to travel.
I'm heading to Chicago Saturday morning early.
Okay.
Yeah, we got a fundraiser up there for me for a change. Yeah, it'd be the first time going up there to do anything for myself, so it's a little bit different. But we got a guy up there that his name's Rob Carmichael, another crocodile specialist group guy.
Yep, I know Rob.
Do you know Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's coming down to the event and bringing some critters over. And
nice.
Yeah, it's pretty excited about that. It's I don't know if we're expecting 20 people or 20,000. I have no idea at this point. So it's going to be interesting to see. But him being there will be huge. I'd met some guys the last time up with a pizza place. They're bringing over like 100 pizzas to serve everybody pizza, and it's the place there. It's called Revolution Brewing, and they made a Humboldt Park Gator beer. So they're going to be serving their Humboldt Park Gator beer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
wow.
It's pretty fancy. We'll see how it goes, but hopefully raise a lot of money for our research and keep things going, because it costs money to do research.
Oh yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
It does.
It costs money to keep it all going. But Zach, we thank you so very much for being here.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate you having here. If people want to learn more about the ongoing fundraising you guys are doing, or where they can donate, where do they go?
Absolutely. So first stop is brevardzoo.org or any of our social media. We have links to all of it there. The campaign website has just gone live. We haven't really started to advertise it yet, but you can check it out. It's ourlegacycampaign.org, because that's the name of this campaign. We are calling it Our Legacy Campaign because we want this aquarium to be our legacy on the Indian River Lagoon. The way we look at it is we can leave one of two legacies on the Indian River Lagoon. One of devastation,
the one that where it's at right now, yeah.
Or we can leave one of caring and protection and nurturing and appreciation. And so our hope is that this aquarium will help form that legacy. So ourlegacycampaign.org or brevardzoo.org. Follow any of our social media. We have lots of fun stuff coming up all through October. Every weekend is Boo at the Zoo. So we've got all kinds of companies coming in and giving out candy to the kids so the kids can come in. It's general admission, no upcharge or anything like that. If you're a member, just show on up. Come during the day, bring the kids with a costume, pick the costume for the weather appropriately. We see a lot of kids, not wanting to wear their costume after about 20 minutes because it's Florida during the day.
Yeah.
And, but we have a great time with that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, check it out.
And you guys are going to be at our event up here in November too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're
For
excited about
EcoFest,
that.
I'm really excited about for that one. We'll have some tickets and some fun stuff there's going to be some cool Brevard Zoo stuff in the raffle. And we'll be up there supporting y'all because
We appreciate
do
it.
good work.
Yep, we're there for you guys too. Anytime you need us, and we'll have all the links to all that stuff in the description of all this, so everybody
Awesome.
can find it and find you guys and see what you're up to. But
Sounds
yeah, I encourage you for sure to go down to the Brevard Zoo, see what they have going on, have your mind blown because it's consistently changing and getting better and better and bigger and more things going on, and it's something you don't want to miss. But thank you again, Zach. Appreciate you having here.
Thanks
and
for having me.
We'll catch you guys next week, and we'll see you all then. Bye-bye.